platforms that we have in Azure. So most of the time, if you are working with Azure as a data engineer, you will come across a couple of data platforms which are mostly used in the Azure project. So the first one is Azure Databricks, which is used as a Spark-based tool in order to perform big data processing. Then you have ADLS, which is Azure Data Lake Storage. We generally use Gen2 to perform data lake operations. And then we have SQL databases, which we use for online transaction processing. Like we have our applications, our data is stored there, and then using OLTP, we actually perform our CRUD operations. And last but not the least is the Azure Synapse Analytics. Previously, this service was known as Azure Data Warehouse, but they have integrated a lot many more features into the service, and now they brand it Azure Synapse Analytics. So that serves as a data warehousing layer. So like without any further delay, let me just share my screen. Can somebody confirm if my screen is visible now?
Yes, it's visible.
Sure. So let me start with the presentation. So I'm going to talk about this particular architecture that I have designed for this session. Now, most of the time in the industry, we do not use passwords to authenticate between the services. Whenever we are using Azure platforms, generally it is preferred that we use OAuth with Azure Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory is nothing but a centralized authentication and identification service which holds all the identities, and all the rest of the services that we use in Azure are actually connected with this service for all the authentication and authorization needs. Now, Azure Active Directory has the secrets. These secrets can be further secured in a key vault. So whatever you create here, you can create and then store those secrets into a key vault. When I say secrets, consider it like a username and password. So you can store those username and passwords into a key vault so that they are secure and they cannot be accessed by somebody. So you are hiding every identification method, so that in any case your code is using such identification tools, the code should not have any mention of that. So you will connect to the key vault, you will get the data, but there will be no visibility. You will not be able to see password, anybody will not be able to see any kind of password or a username. It will just be a key. That key will give the access to the secret, and that secret will be used to authenticate, but there will be no visibility. You cannot print, you cannot use it. So that is why this method is very preferred in Azure applications. So whenever we are performing data engineering projects on Azure, it is highly recommended that you should not use any connection string, you should not use any username password. Always go with the Azure Active Directory and Key Vault. Now if you see, we have three services: SQL, Synapse, and ADLS Gen2 account. So SQL is having Rishabh Tiwari demo server as a server name. You have source database in it. And after that, you have Rishabh Tiwari demo Synapse. That is a Synapse service that I have provisioned. And on that, I am actually running a dedicated SQL pool, which is known as demo data warehouse. So dedicated SQL pool for now, in the layman term, consider as a data warehouse. And Rishabh Tiwari demo ADLS, which is serving as an ADLS layer. And Databricks is going to connect with Azure Active Directory and Key Vault to access the data from all of these three services. Okay. And these major data flows are like, in the step one, we are going to pull a tables data into Azure Databricks. In this step two, we are going to dump it into ADLS Gen2 as a delta file. After that, we are going to use that delta to perform transformations and dump the final data into Azure Synapse. So these are the three steps that we are going to perform. I have already made setup, but I'm going to walk you through all, like how step by step we create this architecture. And this will help you in answering a lot of questions when it comes to creating and working in the data engineering projects in real world. So you will always face these kind of questions like, okay, how do you perform the authentication in your projects? When you say it is a connection based, like connection string based or username password based authentication, chances are very high the interviewer will think that, okay, maybe you have not worked in the industry grade project, because that is not the norm there. So that way, this session is going to help you answer the questions in a way the industry is expecting you to answer. So let's just start with the demo. So this was the whole architecture. Let me just stop the presentation. All right. So just a second. So I am going into portal.azure.com, and in here I have created a resource group. So I don't know like what is the understanding of the audiences about the cloud concepts, but in Azure, resource group is nothing but a collection of services that you manage as a whole. So Rishabh Tiwari demo RG will hold all the resources that I have created for this demo. So this holds a key vault that I have created. This holds a Databricks workspace that I have created, my SQL server, and then my Synapse workspace, my ADLS account, and my data warehouse and my database. So everything is in one single resource group, so that whenever I am done with my work, either if I want to remove these resources, I can directly go and remove this particular resource group, and every resource in it will be deleted. So this is the like layout of the services that I have for this session. Now we are going to start with the Azure Active Directory. In Azure Active Directory, we have couple of options that I'm going to explain. So in the users, you create different users so that your team can work. So right now I have two users. One is me, that is Rishabh Tiwari, and other one I have created as a dummy user. I will tell you why this dummy user is needed. But for now, this dummy user has a username and password that I am going to use to log into couple of services. Now there is another thing that is known as app registrations. So most of the time Azure Active Directory can be little confusing because of the names. So app registrations are nothing but you are creating some users with their password, so that these usernames and passwords can be used to connect to different services. So app registration is nothing but a username and password created in Active Directory to authenticate between different cloud services. It is not going to be used for by somebody like me or other person to log into these services. Rather, it is just the way of communicating between the two services. The similarity can be seen like if you create a role in AWS and assign that role, suppose to uh, kind of a service of if you are working on AWS and in that AWS you have a role, and if that role says that, okay, the service holding this role can access an S3 bucket. So if you assign that role to a service, let's say EMR will be able to access the S3 bucket. So EMR will have the credentials to access the S3 buckets. Similarly, we have these particular apps. These are the three users. So if you see the architecture, ADB SQL DB integration, ADB Synapse integration, ADB ADLS integration. Okay. So as the name suggests, this particular username is going to be used to connect between Azure Databricks and ADLS. ADB Synapse integration will be used by Azure Databricks to access the Synapse, and ADB SQL DB integration will be used by Azure Databricks to access the SQL database. In order to like show you how to create the app, you just have to click on new registration. I'm going to give it a dummy name. You can always change this uh, name like after creating also. So keep everything as it is, just say register. Once you register, your dummy app is ready. You have to maintain these three details: application ID, object ID, and directory tenant ID. I have maintained all this here for the three application that I have registered. Okay. Now the last part, the secret part, I am going to tell you how to create. So for this application, you have basically created a username known as dummy app. Now you need a password. So password you can create here. Certificates and secrets. You create new client secret. Go type something. It is not mandatory, so you can either leave it and let it be, or you can write something that will help you understanding what is this secret is all about. You can have it like for 90 days. Add. Okay. Now this particular thing is going to be the password for the username known as dummy app. You have to copy paste it somewhere safe, because once you come out of this application or this service, you will not be able to see this password anytime soon. Like you will not be able to see after this. It is only for one time. So that is why it is written that you have to copy it and keep it somewhere. Once you come out of this application, it will be gone. It will not be visible. So once you create the username and password, now you have to keep it somewhere safe. So for that, we have something known as key vault. You can create a key vault, and in the key vault, you just have to go to secrets. And if you see, I have created 6 secrets. So as you can see, the name itself suggests this is the app ID. So app ID nothing means this particular application ID, the details that I told you to have. So this application ID will be stored in the application app ID secret. Okay. And in the second one, we are going to store the password. That is this one, secret. Where we are going to use these two, I will tell you later. So you are now storing application ID, which is a unique identifier for the application or the username that we created in app registration, and you are storing the password. So these are the two secrets that you create. Since we have 3 users, we have created 6 secrets. Now this is step 2. In the step 1, you go and create app registrations, you create secrets there, and then in the step 2, you store the app ID, and then you store those secrets that you have created. So these two steps are clear. Now we are going to go for the actual stuff. In this particular case, we are going to connect with 3 services, that is Synapse, SourceDB, and ADLS. I have created a notebook. So let me just go there. This is the notebook that I'm talking about. Okay. But before we can start working with this notebook, we have to tell Azure Databricks where to check for the secrets. Now we have the secrets in Key Vault, but the Azure Databricks does not know where it has to go and look for the secrets. So for that, you have to create a secret scope. So secret scope is nothing but you are giving the details of Key Vault to the Azure Databricks, so that whenever you are asking for the username or password, the Databricks should be able to give that username and password to the Databricks code that you have written, the Spark code that you have written. So here, let me, sorry, I'm going for the URL. You have to go and just write secrets slash create scope. Okay. Here you have to give the name. I'm giving name, let's suppose dummy scope, something like that. And you have to give all users. Now go to your key vault. In the key vault, you have vault URI that you have to copy. You have to paste it here. Then it is asking for resource ID. It is also present here. If you go in the JSON view, this is the resource ID. Okay. Copy the resource ID. And that is why it is also showing you what exactly you have to look for. So it starts with subscription, then some names and all. So if you see, we have the subscription and this is the resource ID with all the details. Once you are done, you just have to create. I have already created a scope, so I'm not going to repeat it again because it is going to be like a repetitive task. So I have created a scope known as dev scope. Okay. So dev scope is going to point where? Dev scope is going to point to this key vault, and then you are going to say, okay, get me the key. So get me the key means ADB SQL DB integration app ID, where we have that ADB SQL DB integration app ID. It is going to pass what? It is going to give this particular value. So we are not going to use this particular value directly. Rather, it will be a app to app conversation. You will not be able to see the actual app ID. Rather than it is going to just go to the key vault. Key vault will give the value. It will authenticate and be done with it. Similarly, it will happen for the secrets also, the password that we have created. So we are using dbutils secrets.get function. We are passing the scope that we created for the key vault. We are passing the secret value or the secret name that we have created. Once you are done with this, you just run this code. So what else we are passing? We are passing the tenant ID. So where is the tenant ID? This particular thing we are using here. So this is the third value. Object ID I have just copied. It was not used in this particular scenario. So you can just ignore this for now. We are using tenant ID in this case. Okay. So once you are done with this, you will have the URL of this Azure SQL DB server, and then you have database name, encrypt, hostname. Uh, I think it is going to take some time. Let me. Okay. So, like till the time this code is going to run, it is like it has terminated. Let it come to life. Uh, the next part that we are doing here is we have connected the database with our ADB account. Now, the next part is we are going to connect our ADLS with our ADB. So for this particular connectivity, what we are using? We are using our second username and password, that is ADB underscore ADLS integration. In this also we have an application ID, we have a secret. Okay. But for this, we have to provide this application access to our ADLS account. So let me go back to our ADLS service, Azure Data Lake service, because this user is going to be used for accessing our ADLS and read and write data there. It should have the access so that it can read and write, right? So in this case, we are going to access control. And if you go and check the role assignment, you see ADB ADLS integration is having storage blob data owner role. So storage blob data owner, I have given a higher access. You can also give storage blob data contributor role, and that way it will be able to contribute into this ADLS. So contribution means it can write, it can read, it can delete all these operations. Somebody who is using this particular username password can do it. And right now that particular thing is going to be used by this particular service, Azure Databricks service. So what we are doing, we are setting the authentication rules here. So again, if you see, we have dev scope, that is our key vault, and then we are giving ADB ADLS integration app ID, ADB ADLS integration secret, and we are setting couple of Spark configurations. Again, we are here using tenant ID. This thing is pretty standard. You don't have to mug up, you don't have to just uh, remember it. You can find out on the Azure documentation. It's just that you should know how this code is working, so you should not be confused. So application ID you created, secret you created, you stored it into key vault, provided access to the key vault to Azure Databricks. Now Azure Databricks is using the key vault secrets to authenticate, and these particular configurations are going to be set. Next would be connecting with the Synapse. So in the connection with Synapse, we also have to check couple of more service, like more things. So here we are going to use Synapse application ID, Synapse service credentials. These are the two things which we use, like we have used earlier also. The new things that we have to do is we have to provide the integration that we created, the application ID that we created, all these services as well, like all these privileges. Let me go and check this to. So you connect using SSMS. So if you see, we are under Synapse. In the Synapse, we are in demo data warehouse. You just copy paste it. So first is what you are going to do. You are going to create a user with the same app name that you have in your Active Directory. You are going to do it. Then you are going to add this user as a DB owner. We have DB data reader, we have DB data writer as well, but just for sake of simplicity, right now I am giving this particular app name DB owner privileges on demo data warehouse. Okay. Then for encryption, because we are going to access the data over the network using Azure Databricks, so we need some kind of encryption so that once the data is in motion, once the data is in transit, there should be some kind of encryption. So you create an encryption key. After that, you perform database bulk operations, like if you are creating or if you are uh, populating table, or if you are cleaning the table and creating staging tables and all that stuff. For that, this privilege is given. After that, we have standard grant insert create table that we do, and then we give alter on the schema DBO. We are creating a sales table that is going to hold product ID and the cumulative sales that it has made over a period of time. So this table is created. All this is done so that once we are trying to push the data into Synapse, there should not be any resistance, because this particular integration that we have created, the app name ADB Synapse integration, should have proper privileges on the both end, on the data lake end as well as on the Synapse end. Let me go back whether our compute is up or not. Let me just check. So these are the three app names that we have created and all the things that we have set up so far. For the code part, okay. Okay, so the cluster is now starting. Let's okay. Okay, I think everything is done. We are now good to go. Let me just wait for the cluster to come up, and after that we can start. It will take a couple of minutes, so just be patient. Uh, on the SQL database side, let me just show you a couple of things in the meantime. So this was Synapse. Now, if you go to the SQL database that we have created a source database, and we have populated couple of tables from the sales LT. Now, the table that we are going to use is known as sales order detail. And here also we have created an app name that is known as ADB SQL DB integration. Same, and we have provided access on the schema. So we are here giving only the select schema on the sales LT, select access on the sales LT schema, because we just want to pull the data from the database table and push it into ADLS. We don't want to perform any kind of transformation, and this is ELT operation. So what we are doing here is we are just pulling the data. We are not doing any transformation in step one. We are pulling it and pushing it into ADLS. So we are just pulling and pushing it as it is into our ADLS, and then we are going to use this particular data that we have pulled into ADLS for further transformations. So this is known as extract, load and transform approach, and the benefits are that you don't have to depend on a lot of computing power when you are actually pulling the data from the source, because it actually delays the whole process. So you store data first step in a secure place, and after that you use that data to perform your analytics. So that also comes handy when you are going for an interview, that how you are using your tools to perform ETL, ELT operations, whether you are using ETL operation or ELT operation. So that is also a major project related question that people ask, and they try to judge you whether you have actually worked in a data engineering project on in industry, or you are just uh, doing some random use cases and then coming for the interview. Uh, why it is taking so much of time? Gavaskar, is it okay? Like, I think session was for 30 minutes only. Can I extend?
No, you can extend till 1 hour. Actually,
Okay.
it's 1 hour. No?
Okay, okay, no problem. I actually saw, okay, fine, no issues. Uh, Guys, just wait for some time. I think this cluster is taking a little more time than expected. So let me just use another cluster maybe. This does not come online. Always use a like small instance in order to reduce the cost if you are practicing on cloud, and try to make sure that you provision and then clean the resources once you are done with your uh, testing or practice whatever you are doing. Otherwise, the price can go really, really fast. Your bill will be huge. Bhanu, yes, you can. You can. And if you haven't like created an Azure account, when you create for the very first time, they give you credit of $200, 200 US dollars, and that you can use for your uh, services for at least a month, I think. And post that, you will not be charged until you start using pay as you go subscription. So there are two types of subscriptions in Azure. First is, once you log in, once you create your account on Azure, you are given a free demo like subscription. Let me just show you. So if I go to my home and if I go to subscriptions, okay, so this is the pay as you go subscription that is currently active in my case. But if I go into cost management and if I go into subscription, then there was a free trial. That free trial I consumed, and after that I went to pay as you go. And from pay as you go, it is whatever you use, whatever services you consume, you have to pay for it. And last I was billed for 0.01 rupees because I was not very active at that time on Azure in my personal account. So yeah, but be very careful, like what are the services you are provisioning and how big of the resources you are taking. So just be sure about that, and I think the rest is good. Any more questions? Okay, this cluster is up and running. Fine. Now we can go and start with the demo. So I hope the whole structure is clear, but still I will repeat. So the steps that we have followed is, first things first, you go and create app ID and app secret. Consider username and password. Don't get too technical. It's just a username password that your services are going to use to authenticate each other. Okay. After that, you are going to create an Azure Active Directory admin for Azure SQL DB server. Azure Active Directory admin for Azure SQL DB server is that account that we had in Azure Active Directory, Chris. Let me show you. So this account I have created an admin, and if you check, I have logged in using that particular admin. Let me just show you. So if I try to create another connection, if you see, this is the Chris login. I'm not using mine. It is always the best practice to have a different user to run your authentication or this kind of stuff, because if you compromise, if your admin account get compromised, chances are very high that your account will be misused and you are the person who is going to pay the bills. So always use a different username with little less privileges, because that way you will be able to secure your account. Okay, so this is why I have created this, and I have made admin of this database. Okay, so Chris cannot access any other thing than this database. Okay. Now coming to step 3, we store the values into Key Vault, and then we create SQL database and load sample data. Database is created, then we are going to use compute resources, provision compute resources on Databricks. The sixth one is the important one, because here what we are doing, in order to authenticate using Azure Active Directory in Python, we need a package that is known as ADAL. Okay. And in order to connect to Microsoft SQL database, we need a connector. Like Spark needs a connector. This is the connector location. So we have to install these two things on our cluster. Let me show you the cluster. So if I go to my first cluster that I had created, go to libraries, and I have installed these two things. Okay. So you go here, go to PyP and write the name of the package. Okay. And click on install. Similarly, if you go and check the Microsoft SQL connector, go to install now, go to Maven. Okay. And write this. You can definitely, like, I don't know this, but it's just the like simple Google search. What is the Spark connector for Microsoft SQL Server? And they will give you the location. And you just have to use them to install. Okay. Now going back to our notebook. Once everything is set and done, we are going to start working with our notebook. Okay. So we imported the package. Now we are going to create the authentication. So we used our ADB SQL integration apps ID and secret. So we passed username and password to Azure Databricks. We created the authority. Azure SQL URL is the server URL that we have. Then database name is source database that we have given here. Okay. And last but not the least, we have to give these two things, encrypt and host name in the certificate. Again, this is for security of the data in transit. So encrypt 2 means the communication between the Databricks and the SQL database will be encrypted, and host name in certificate is that transport layer security is managed by the TLS certificates. So it's a networking concept, but make sure that you have these two things set up. Again, it is a boilerplate code. You have to use it like copy paste it. It's no big deal. Like you don't have to remember it. It's just that you have to go to the documentation, copy paste. That's it. After that, if you see, we are creating an access token. Using what? You are using the secret and app ID and whatever app ID URL that we have. We have app ID URL. Just a second. Resource app ID URL. Um, where exactly it is? Yeah, this one. Okay. So we are using these three things to finally authenticate. So we pass the details, we authenticated. Now we are going to access our table. So which table we are going to access? Sales order detail. Database name we have already set up. Access token we just created. Now we are going to use this particular code to pull the data from the sales order detail table into a data frame. The data frame has been created. This is the data. Okay. So we have different columns like sales ID, sales order detail, order quantity, and rest of the things. Okay. But we are interested in uh, three columns. We are interested in product ID. What was the quantity that was ordered for the product? What was the line total? That means the amount after discount that we have given for the order. Okay. So the total sales would be the quantity multiplied by the line total, and then we have to sum it up on product level. Okay, which we are going to do later. But now we are going to authenticate with the ADLS account. So we did the first step. That means we accessed our data and we created a data frame into Azure Databricks. Now the data is in the Spark. The second step is push the data into ADLS Gen 2. So this is what we are going to do. So before that, we authenticated with ADB ADLS integration, application username and password. So ADB ADLS integration, app ID and secret we used to authenticate. Just to check whether our authentication was successful or not, we can run the ls command. And if ls command returns the value, that means our authentication was successful. Just to show you, so right now, if you see, we have a container dev, and in there we have data. So when we ran our ls command, it is showing in the dev container, we have a folder name data. Technically, it is a directory, but I'm calling it folder here. Both are the same thing, is just that it's a Linux abbreviation. Then what we are going to do, we are going to create another folder in the data to store the current day's data. So that particular folder name will come from the current date. So we use date time and we got the today's date. Okay. Now we are going to write our data frame as a delta table into our location where we have appended the current date as a folder name. Okay. Now it is done. So if you go and check, we have delta, and in delta we have 2023 423. Here we have our file created. Okay. So step 2, first part is done. Like we pull the data from the SQL table, we push the data as a delta table into our ADLS account. Now the second part is to pull it back from here into a data frame and then perform our transformation. And what are the transformations that we are going to perform? We are going to perform an aggregation on the product for our sales. So if you check, now we are using the delta folder and we are using the current directory that we created, the date directory. So we have created a sales order delta DF, and we are now going to use Spark SQL because Spark SQL is very easy to work with. It is much more easier to code in the Spark SQL. So right now, just to show you whether we have the data or not, we created a temp view on the data frame. Sales order is our temp view. And now I'm going to just use a spark.sql command to run the SQL that is going to show the data that we have in our data frame. Okay. So right now, if you see, we have our data. Then what I am doing, I am actually just grouping the sales, that is line total into order quantity for product. And we are like using a new new column alias like total sales. Okay. So second part is done. Like we pulled our data from the ADLS, we transformed it. Now the last part is we have to give it to the Synapse. Okay. So for Synapse, what we are using? ADB Synapse integration. So ADB Synapse integration we are going to use for authentication between ADB and Synapse. Okay. So all these steps we have done, like we created a user, we gave the DB owner privilege, we created an encryption key, gave all these grants. Okay. And now this is our final table. So we are going to store product ID and our sales. Okay. So again, if you see, it is actually the same thing. We are doing the same thing again. We are using our ADB Synapse integration app ID and app secret to authenticate. No change here, nothing, just extra two steps we have added. That is client ID and client secret for the SQL data warehouse JDBC service. So these are the two things that we have added extra. Otherwise, all these stuffs we have done above also. So right, if you see, uh, like total around like 3 5. Okay. And here how many we have? Total 5. Okay. Same stuff, there is no change. Again, it is a boilerplate code. You don't have to remember it. It's just a documentation. You go copy paste it, make the changes, and you are good to go. Okay. The most important part is how to understand the Azure Active Directory authentication. Why we are creating that app, why we are creating that secret, how we are going to store the secret into our key vault. What is the advantage of using this method over connection string or SAS token or username password? That is the thing that is important, and that is why it is most commonly used and also recommended by Microsoft. Okay. Now I'm just checking one more time this particular path. Okay. Let me just show you where it is. Okay. So we created two containers. One is dev, one is Synapse stage. What this container is doing, let me tell you. So Synapse stage is acting as a temporary storage between Azure Databricks and Synapse. Okay. So when we are pushing the data into Synapse or when we are pulling the data into from Synapse, we use like this particular storage area to temporarily store the files. So like we use poly-based technology. I'm not going to go into details of that, but when we are using, when we are calling our queries on Synapse, then polybase is used to pull the data and push it in the form of files into a staging location. And then those files are used to create the data frames into our Azure Databricks. So that is why we always provision a container for our Synapse in order to perform this operation. Okay, it is mandatory. So when you go and create your Synapse will ask you either you provide a either you provide a container or you have to create a container. Okay, so now this container is also accessible. Then we do not have any problem. We just have to this particular thing we can just do. Let me just go ahead and create a dummy table. So I'm creating create table. Let's suppose users. I'm just giving ID as int and name as varchar. Let's suppose 20. So I'm creating this into a data warehouse, data warehouse. Okay, and then I'm going to insert into values, insert into users values. So second, yeah. I'm just randomly pushing some data in it. Okay, so I have created this particular table to just check whether my connection is working properly or not. Okay, so now I'm going to read this table from Synapse into our Azure Databricks data frame. Okay, it worked. Now let me just run a df.show. So if you see, we have waiting for Azure to unload intermediate data and see this location. It is a Synapse stage location. So now the Synapse is loading the data in the form of file into the staging area. And then from there, it is used by Databricks to create a data frame. So now we are able to see our data. Okay. That means our authentication is perfectly set up. Now, final thing which we are going to do is we are going to write our data, that is this data frame. This one, total sales data frame, we are going to write where we are going to write it into our total sales table. So this table is going to be truncated and loaded every single day. Okay. So what we are using append. Okay, I think I have to use overwrite here. Okay, let me just run. Since this is the first time, append would also work fine, but after that you have to like be very careful. Otherwise the new data will be appended and it will keep on appending it. Okay. So let me just see whether my data has arrived or not. As you can see, my data is right now in the table. Okay. And after this, if you want to go ahead and read our total sales data, now I'm not going to read it from the data frame. I'm using the Synapse table that we have just loaded. Okay. So this is we are doing in the Databricks, but ideally what will happen after this stage, data engineer's job is done. Now the data resides in data warehouse. Now the data will be taken by the data analyst and data scientist to perform their operation. Suppose I am a data analyst and if I want to create a pie chart out of the total sales to figure out which product is selling more, then right now I am creating a data frame, but consider it like I'm connecting from a Power BI. So I just use data frame to hold all the data from the table, display it. Okay. And now if I go and see the visualization, I created this visualization. Okay, I think it has become invalid. Remove. I create a visualization. If you see, we are getting scattered plot, but it is of like it does not make more sense. So I'm using a pie chart. Okay. So if you see, we are getting around 15% of our sale from the product number 976. Okay. So let me just check what this product 976 is all about. So let me just go and check from product description. Okay, I have to go to this description. Product ID is equal to 976. Okay. Let me just check product ID 976. Okay, it is product ID. So we have something like road 350. I'm not able to make any sense out of it. So let me go back to product description. Let's see what it gives. Okay, so we have to see product description ID, product category ID, model ID. Okay. We have product category ID as 6, product model ID. Okay. Product model, model ID is equal to 27. Okay. So right now I am not able to make out any of this because I have not seen the entire entity relationship diagram for this database because it's a dummy database. But the whole purpose of explaining this to you was the entire process that we follow in a data engineering project when we are working with Azure. So most of the time you guys are going to use Azure Databricks as a platform to crunch your data for ETL, ELT transformations. You are going to hold your data into ADLS and you are going to authenticate with Synapse and SQL Synapse and SQL DB to pull and push the data. So final destination will be your Synapse. Sources will be your n number of sources can be there. I am using SQL database. Somebody can use something else. But our destination, the first destination for the data will be our data lake, and from there the rest of the pipeline will work. Now this whole thing can be okay. This whole thing can be scheduled. You can schedule it from here and you can also schedule it from services like Azure Databricks, Azure Data Factory. So the entire purpose of this session was to explain you how you get the things done using Azure Active Directory authentication and what this architecture is all about, like how you are going to use Azure Active Directory to create such an architecture. So I think that was all from my side. If you guys have any queries or question, or Oscar, if you have anything for me, just let me know.
Participants, if you have any questions, you can ask now. You are in unmute. You can unmute yourself and you can ask the questions. Participants.
Okay. Any questions, guys? I know it was more on the demo side, but if you guys have any questions about how this was structured, what are the things that we covered in Azure Active Directory, please feel free to ask questions, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Gavaskar, I think we are good to close. I think audience does not have
Yeah,
question.
yeah. So I will share the screen and I will share the secret code for downloading the certificate.
Okay.
So participants, the secret code for downloading the certificate is 9713G2. So I have shared that in the chart. You can get it from the chart. Okay. So I will explain how to download the certificate. You can go to our platform, that is www.truthia.com, and you can find all the upcoming events which is going to happen during Saturdays and Sunday. And now this is the event which has happened today. Just you can click view events and you can register as a guest or you can attend this event. So now you can provide your name, your email ID, your number, your mobile number, and if you want, you can provide an organization and you can register. Yeah, now this is a dashboard. You can find once the recorded session is available, you can find the recorded session over here. It's running over here, and you can claim the certificate. Now you can claim the certificate. You can click this option, and now you can provide the name which has to be printed in the certificates, and then you can provide the email ID and the phone number, and then you click the next. Now here you can provide the secret code. This is a secret code 9713G2 is a secret code. You can provide the secret code over here. Now you can click submit. Now the certificate will be generated and the link for downloading the same will be sent to your mail ID. Now that's all from the certification desk. Hope that you have downloaded the certificate. And if you have any issues, you can provide the issues in the Telegram channel, which is available over here. Telegram channel is available.
Okay. And Gavaskar,
Yeah,
I have shared you the presentation. I'm sharing you the notebook also.
yeah.
And you guys can share it with the audiences.
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
me.
So it's a good session, which is provided by Rishabh Tiwari. On behalf of Multicloud for you, we'd like to thank him for providing a wonderful session on Azure Synapse Analytics, Azure SQL, and Databricks. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. And once again, we have to thank all the participants for attending the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.